All right. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. It's so nice to see so many of your faces. For those of you that I have not had the pleasure of meeting and visiting your organization yet, my name is Dorothy Wong, and I am the Chief Partnerships and Strategy Officer at Philabundance. And I really just want to truly thank you all for joining us today. We know that everyone is busy and it's Friday and it's lunchtime, but we absolutely appreciate you being here and for us to spend a little bit of time together as a community. So we know that many of you have on your mind, as do we, just really wanting to understand kind of where we're at and how we can support each other when there's such high need for food right now. And, the reality is that we've heard you in your concerns around food and resources that are available. So today we really wanted an opportunity for all of you to hear directly from our Chief Executive Officer, Loree Jones-Brown, to really address these concerns, answer some questions, and for us to talk about all the available resources that we have and ones that are going to be new to all of you in the next few months. And that way we can all take action together. And we're also really excited to be joined by one of our friends and colleagues at Feeding America to talk a little bit more about the Farm Bill. So really, without any further ado, I want to introduce our Chief Executive Officer at Philabundance, Loree Jones-Brown.
Thank you, Dorothy. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for hopping on to this Zoom, this virtual call. It's great to see folks again. I got to see many of you back in June at our at Xfinity Live for our Community Partnerships Day. I left that feeling energized and better informed, and hope you did as well. So thank you for that. I want to say, express my gratitude as Dorothy did to all of you. I hope you know that whenever you see Philabundance anywhere, whether it's on a billboard or now on our mural that's showing up here or on the news, that it is, we really are standing on your shoulders, and that when we're talking about Philabundance, we're talking about all of you, the incredible network. We could not do this work without what you're doing on the ground. And so know that if we're talking about you, if we're asking for funds, anything that's we're doing it with you in our hearts and minds, and appreciate all you do. I have been, as you likely know, I've been out on visits, and I've had a chance to pretty regularly get out to see what's happening on the ground and visit your pantries, to talk to your neighbors, to find out what's going on and see ways that we can support you. Thank you for being so hospitable during those visits. But it's been interesting. Things have been changing. I've noticed a change over the last year. I used to see shelves that were full, freezers that were full, refrigerators that were full of food. I used to see more of a variety of food than I'm seeing now. And so I can imagine what you're feeling, and Dorothy referenced this, that you are seeing and feeling and receiving less food from us and less variety. It's got to be frustrating for you. I know it's frustrating for our neighbors. It's frustrating for us. We have, with you, made a commitment to provide people with food, to provide them with healthy food whenever possible, to provide them with fresh produce and lean proteins, to provide culturally responsive food, really reflecting the variety and the diversity of the people that we serve. But because of some budget constraints that I'll talk through, and inflation and other things happening in the economy, that's been reduced a fair amount. So during this conversation, I wanted to be open and transparent and clear and show you all, here's what's happening with us, with our numbers, with budget, and here are some ways that we could try to do more.
Did you know that 1 in 10 Americans are food insecure?
September is Hunger Action Month.
And we encourage everyone to join the movement to fight food insecurity today.
And end hunger for good.
Hunger touches every state,
every county, every zip code.
And the need right now is soaring.
Pandemic-era government supports like SNAP emergency allotments
have come to an end, while food inflation remains high.
The communities we serve are facing a hunger cliff.
Families are forced to make impossible choices
between food or other necessities like rent,
utilities, and medication,
making children, seniors, and people with disabilities more vulnerable to food insecurity.
Meanwhile, already overburdened food banks and pantries are struggling to fill the gap and meet the heightened need.
We can't do it alone.
But there's a chance to help.
The Farm Bill, the cornerstone federal legislation for food and farming,
is up for reauthorization later this year,
which provides an opportunity to strengthen programs like SNAP, TFAP, and CSFP
that help food banks and people we serve put food on the table.
Join Philabundance as we urge Congress to pass a strong farm bill
and provide access to nutritious food for our communities.
Take action today and click the link to get involved.
Thank you all. I probably should have started off with that as a reminder that's Hunger Action Month, and wish people happy Hunger Action Month. I jumped right in, and we will, with our colleague Kelly from Feeding America, talk more about how we can all act and really motivate our volunteers, people we serve, others to really engage with the Farm Bill. But we have lots of resources. We'll talk about those in a minute. I should also say, if you have questions, could you please either put them in the chat, or even if you want to come off mute. I know there are a lot of us on this call, but we want to make sure that this is as interactive as possible. So you can either raise your hand or put in the chat. And I'm looking at that. Yes, Jackie's asking about this video, or yes, we're thrilled that the staff, they did a great job with it. We will be able to send out this video and other tools, and some of them Kelly will talk about, to all of you following this call. I think some will be in our email updates that we send to you, but we will make sure that all these resources you guys have access to. If I didn't thank as well our agency council, a couple of years ago, we identified a subset of you all to serve in a leadership role on an agency council. We obviously come to you all very regularly asking for information and data to help us operate better, to serve you better and serve our neighbors better. And so rather than always coming to all 350 of you, we identified, and people raise their hands. We have about a dozen or so people that we meet with more often. I did connect with them at the end of last month. I said, hey, this is what's happening with food and with money and budgets and all of that. How do I really talk to the council about it? So I do thank our members of the agency council for helping to inform this discussion today. So without further ado, this slide that you're looking at is a slide that we shared a version of this slide with Congress. When we went to the Senate back in April, and we shared this with them leading into this conversation about the Farm Bill. And I think it's gonna be good for the second half of our conversation about the Farm Bill, but it's also important when you think about what we at Philabundance were able to provide. So if you look at this, this is showing you by fiscal year. And our fiscal year runs from July to June. And so what it'll tell you by each of those years, the amount of food in pounds that we were able to distribute to our neighbors through all of you. And so if you look at the far left side, in 2019, we purchased 5.5 million pounds of food. We got donated food, so that would be from Retail Rescue and other programs. We got 20 million pounds of food. We got only 2 million pounds of food from government, and so we distributed 28 million pounds of food, right? So I'm going to call your attention as we move to the right, to that government line, and see that in 2019, it was 2.2 million pounds of food, but then it jumped to 17 million pounds and 13 million pounds right at the height of the trade mitigation efforts and the height of COVID. And then if you look in 2022, you see those numbers coming back down. 4 million pounds, 5 million pounds. And so far this year, up to a couple weeks ago, 1.5 million pounds. So I want to pause and just let you kind of soak this in. This was something when I shared this with our staff, as I said, we talked to the Senate, we shared it with our board, we shared it with our agency council. It's one of those things that when you think about how much food that we've been able to distribute and why it looked like, why we were able to have so much variety and so much volume that I talked about a minute ago, part of it, frankly, was because we had this influx of food from government. And as you can see, that is now trending down. Someone's asking, what would that be for the entire year? We can multiply this about by 4. And so we're thinking maybe we'll be at 5 million pounds or so, maybe a little bit over 5 as we were last fiscal year. So I saw your question, Jack. So go back up to that top line. So purchase food for 2019 for 5.5 million pounds, then 9 million, then 16 million, then 18 million. And last year, nearly 20 million pounds of food we were able to purchase. And we had the dollars to be able to purchase that. And so when we have the ability to purchase food, that's when we're able to provide all that variety that we're talking about. Culture responsive, more fresh produce, more lean proteins. We're able to really say, you guys tell us what you want. You tell us what the neighbors want. We're able to purchase that. So obviously for this year, it's trending down a little bit as well. So I'm going to pause and see if there are questions about what this slide says, because I know it's a lot of data. I've looked at it multiple times, so I can go through it quickly, but I want to pause, see if there are other questions or comments about this food. Great question, Jeanette. Why is 22 only a 9-month period? So when I first got here, our fiscal year was October through September, which is actually the same as the federal government. But the city government and state government that we operate in, both New Jersey and Pennsylvania, all have a July-June fiscal year. Feeding America, our national organization, also has a July-June fiscal year. And so we went through the effort of changing from that October, September to a July-June to be more consistent with all of those entities, right? And so to do that, and this is like a counting piece, we just did a short year. So we did October of 2021 to June of 2022. So that's why that's only 9 months. Great question. Yeah. Bottom line, are we anticipating this year? Great question. Anticipate a little bit more than, so I'm glad you asked that. So you can see we got from the 28 million pounds up to like 50 million pounds and just under 50 million pounds this last 12-month fiscal year. And honestly, we were hoping to keep on that level. But in addition to government pounds continuing to go down, as you see here, that we don't have much to do about unless we push on the farm bill. We also have budget constraints, like all of you have budget constraints. And as we were doing our budgeting this year, our board really took a very conservative stance, and our food budget dropped dramatically. And so we have less flexibility this year than we have in the past for purchasing food. In the past, say for 2023, our food budget was about $13 million, huge amount of food. You see what we're able to purchase with that. This fiscal year, when I add up some other funds and special funds we have that are directed funds for purchasing food locally, we probably have closer to only 8 million. So nearly like about half of what we had last year. So putting this together in terms of our goal, we set a goal for this fiscal year of finding 38 million pounds for our neighbors. So down from 49 million pounds to 38. We know that's not enough because again, over the last year when I was visiting, even when we were distributing this much food and spending $13 million, frankly, and I'm looking on the screen to see if anybody, when I visited you guys, I got lots of complaints. I got complaints that we didn't have enough variety, enough volume. And I appreciate it. Keep the complaints coming. I love the feedback. And so we obviously are anticipating if we go down from 49 million pounds down to 38 million pounds, you, our neighbors are going to feel it that much more. Okay. Yes, Dr. Ross, you are right. The fact is, and we saw this over the last fiscal year, and Dr. Ross's question is right, we're seeing increased need. Every place I'm going, you guys are telling me 50% more people, twice the amount of people. I see Reverend Siegel on, where's Pastor Siegel is on. And what are you serving, like 500 people at your distributions, 500 families? And so we are seeing the numbers go up. So it is concerning and it is alarming. I'm concerned about it. I wanted you all to know at the beginning of the fiscal year what we're facing. Can I give further context about donated food changing over time? I will say we actually had a really solid year last year with donated food, and there are things that we're doing to increase it. So donated food actually went up this past year. We've actually went up to 24, nearly 25 million pounds. Again, for 2024, remember, that's still just a couple of months in the year. It's not the full year yet. And our team with all of you have done a really good job of really strengthening our partnerships around retail rescue to get more donated food that way. I don't know if somebody is on from Upper Room. I saw Deacon Bennett on Monday. Virtually everything they give out is retail rescue food. And I know every day he's out at 5 in the morning visiting several different outlets, several different stores to get that. We at Philabundance have made a recommitment to redouble our efforts around retail rescue. We've asked every member of our staff to be part of the process to ensure that we are strengthening and stewarding our partners around retail rescue to make your lives easier to get that high quality, healthy variety food that we get from that side. We also are refocusing our efforts around the port to make sure that we're getting as much produce out of there as we can that won't cost us money. So we're pushing hard to get more and more donated food in. So thank you for that question. And I appreciate, we are thinking about being creative and different about strengthening partnerships with local farmers and other places for donated food. I will say one of the things we did as we were thinking about budget is, and some people here will have seen that, we had been paying a third party to do some of the retail rescue pickups. So in this moment of tighter budgets, we said, well, we're not going to do that. We have trucks. And in some cases, our partners have trucks, either their own or some that we've purchased for them. We're going to kind of cut out the middleman so that we can really use our dollars for the food itself and for supporting you all as opposed to those third parties. So we have in some cases, like Sharing Access was one of them. We partner with them at the produce market, but we're no longer paying them to do pickups that either we could do ourselves or you could do, so we can save that money to buy more food. Yep, that's right. I see these numbers. So we're going to capture all of these numbers. They're in the chat, and this is going to help us tell the story, not just to our board, but to other to funders, because I promise you, each and every day we're out there. I was going to say begging for money, but that's part of what we do. Really out there fundraising, really helping people understand that our neighbors really do need our help, particularly in this moment of reduced government supports, inflation, and government foods going down. So they keep providing that and I know people are limiting what people can serve. Thank you for those numbers. The next one is a King quote that people know, that is one of my, I think our greatest American. I often use this King quote. I have the audacity to believe that people everywhere can have 3 meals a day in their bodies, education and culture for their minds, and dignity, equality, and freedom for their spirits. And that is absolutely our commitment at Philabundance. And I know it's your commitment every day. We know that it's unconscionable that so many of our neighbors are struggling in this way in our land of plenty. And we're absolutely committed to doing everything we can to make sure that we can alleviate that issue for them and their families. So here's the ways that we do provide food and continue to. I want to highlight these because as I've done some visits, some people are not taking advantage of all the ways that we have to provide food for people. I'm gonna start in the middle with government programs. I realize government programs require additional paperwork and some people don't want to do them. We can help walk you through that to make it easy for you with those programs, to make sure you have access to that food, such as it is, even as it's reducing. Retail rescue, we've talked about a fair amount. We've got a team. I have a new food sourcing director. We can help you connect to really understand how it is you can take advantage of that. Every place I go, people who are doing retail rescue love the food. They love the variety of the food. They really do. So I encourage you to have us work with you on how you can do that. And obviously produce and perishable food. Much of that, the money that we've spent on food has been on produce. When we're purchasing, our purchasing power, 95% of what we're purchasing is healthy food. Because we know that's what you've said, it's what our neighbors say. Every place I go, people want more fresh fruits and vegetables. So we are committed to doing that. And then on the far left, I'm going to call it Agency Express because I visited a partner a couple of weeks ago and they weren't on Agency Express at all. I describe it as like online, like Amazon shopping or Instacart shopping for agencies, right? And so again, I know the variety has been down. I understand the volumes have been down, but I do want to know that that's one of the ways, if you're not taking advantage of getting food from us, that you can take advantage of. We have a very easy way. We can walk you through it online, in person, to help you take advantage of our resources. Okay, direct purchasing. So that last slide showed you all the current ways that we can provide food, and know that we're going back to our board to get more dollars out of our board. We're doing more fundraising. We're pushing for more for retail rescue, more donated food. And in a minute, you'll hear we're really pushing the government to provide more supports. Direct purchasing. So here's a new-ish idea. You may recall years ago, Philabundance used to charge you for things. Anybody recall that? Anybody remember that? We got some, right? So we would charge for membership fees, a nominal fee, right? And we would also charge for food. Pandemic hit and we went away from that. Well, Loree Jones-Brown, CEO of Philabundance's commitment is, I'm not charging you for membership fees and I'm not charging you for food. I feel like we have invested, we've got a development department we're raising millions of dollars a year. We should do that and let you guys worry about being the boots on the ground, the work that you do every day. That's my commitment. That said, in the last year, several of you have come to me and said, we have the ability to do some fundraising on our own. We have some dollars. We're going to the grocery stores and buying food. We're going to BJ's and Costco to buy food. But Loree, you probably can get it cheaper, right? Because you're buying in bulk, Loree, or some of our purchases are coming from Feeding America. We're buying from them. So imagine that's 200 food banks, right? So we're getting things pennies on the dollar. And so our commitment still is not to have you buy all the food, but if you want to come to us and say, you know what, I've got a donor who's going to be willing to pay for food, and I believe that Philabundance can get it cheaper, we're going to set up a process so you can do that. So we're calling that direct purchasing. So food is still free, except if you say, you know what, somebody gave us $500 and we think we want to get some rice and beans and it's costing us $1.50 at the supermarket, but you can get it for 50 cents, Philabundance, you can do that. Now, we understand this is a Band-Aid, it's a fix. We understand, well, ideally, we'd be able to offer all of our neighbors, all of you, all the food, healthy variety that you would want, but things are tighter now, so we can't necessarily do that. Okay, so this is our new solution, and we've talked again to some of our council members about it. This idea really came from some of you. I think Bucks County approached me about it last year. I think some other people in Montgomery County did. Another organization within the city of Philadelphia. So that's the idea. And I understand, again, it's not fair and equitable because it doesn't mean 100% of the people, but we're just trying to, wherever possible, be creative to find ways to get food out into our neighbors. You're asking a great question if there are going to be numbers of cases and minimums. We're hoping not. And that's why we just need a little bit of time to work through the details of this.
And Loree, I just wanted to add, it was great to see all of the questions and comments coming through the chat. We are capturing everything because there is another Q&A portion at the end. So if we didn't have a chance for Loree to address your question yet, we are still compiling everything, and we will also be able to send out a follow-up email if we missed anything. So just for those of you that are like, hey, my question wasn't addressed yet, we are compiling everything on the back end. So just please let us know we're working on that as well.
Oh my gosh, these numbers are just heartbreaking. I don't want to say your name wrong, so I'll say Ms. Saint Jean. We're not anticipating doing this before Thanksgiving. I apologize. Somebody asked that question. So this is something we want to be able to do, have in place by January. If we can do it sooner, we absolutely will. I'm not sure we'll be able to do that in the next month or so. For us, we really are thinking of food. That's what we purchase more. I know that many of you are providing other toiletry items to people. We don't prioritize that for our purchasing. So I don't necessarily have discounts on that for purchasing. So that's why we're not including kind of toiletries, which we know are definitely needed. That's also in some cases, for some folks, it's been a good retail rescue item. In some cases, there are some donors that have been good about donating toiletries and cleaning supplies and things like that. But no, for us, we're thinking purely of food because that's where we get the best bang for our buck, as they would say. And I understand all the toiletries that people need. That's not what we're including in this. And I also know that some partners I've gone to have taken that kind of extra money that they're not spending on our membership fees or haven't been spending on food for us, and they're using that to purchase those kinds of items. I understand that some of you have done that. I've heard you say that. I want to make sure that there are so many ways that I feel like our incredible network is much stronger and a better place than we were 3 years ago, say when I started. We have grown in many ways. We've added, we've expanded our capacity. There's so many more of you that are providing additional services beyond food to people. So many more of you are providing people have returned to choice to allow people the dignity of choosing. Many of you, I think we now have 40 or 41 of you are part of our Healthy Pantry Initiative. So we are helping people, nudging people to making healthy choices. We've done cooking demonstrations and the like. Many of you have added sites, you've done strategic planning, you have grown, you've really deepened your connections to the community. So I know that we and our network is much stronger than it was 3 years ago. That said, as I look in the chat and see these numbers and what I'm seeing, I frankly get discouraged sometimes, and Maria knows this and others do, because I feel like the problem keeps getting bigger, right? There are more and more families that need help. So on one hand, I'm encouraged that we're able to work together to do this work, but it's tough. And I can imagine it's tough for all of you because you really are on the front lines. And that is why we work so hard on the advocacy piece. It's why we work so hard to raise dollars, to raise awareness about this work, because we know the need is just, it's heartbreaking. I'm going to close out by really kind of transitioning us to one of the ways that we can come together, use our collective voices to call on the government to do what we need it to do to support our work. We're going to still be here. We're not going anywhere, right? And we still have a really strong fundraising, strong budgets. We have the ability, like $8 million is not a little bit of money. We used to spend $2 million. It's a lot more than we used to spend. But we just know, you all know, it's just not enough given the economic conditions and what our families are facing right now. So thank you all for what you do. I will come back on at the end. I think we're going to see a quick video, and then I'll be turning it over to Kelly Quintero from Feeding America, based out of Chicago. I don't know, actually know if you're in DC or Chicago, Kelly, to talk about ways we can come together to call on Congress to help our neighbors more.
September is Hunger Action Month. I'm back with another quick and effective way that you can be an advocate in the movement to end hunger. Right now, Congress has the opportunity to strengthen food assistance programs through the Farm Bill. The Farm Bill is the cornerstone federal legislation for nutrition and agriculture programs, and it's up for renewal this year. We hope you'll join us in urging Congress to pass a strong Farm Bill that protects and expands critical federal programs like SNAP, TFAP, and CSFP. Together, these programs help millions of families keep food on the table and ease the strain on food banks. This chance only comes around once every 5 years, and this year it's all hands on deck. Your representatives need to hear from you. It only takes a few minutes to call your representative and make your voice heard. If you don't know who your elected officials are, go to congress.gov to find out. Then call the Capitol switchboard to get connected with your representative's office. Be prepared to speak with a staff member or to leave a voicemail. You can check out our resources for some talking points and tips. Whether you have personally experienced hunger, whether you volunteer at a food pantry, or whether you just share in our belief that no one should go hungry, your perspective matters. Phone calls from constituents can really make a difference. So give your legislators a call today and tell them to pass the strongest possible farm bill to help end hunger.
So just wanted to do a quick introduction. So today we are joined by Kelly Quintero, the Director of Policy for Feeding America. Kelly is a first-generation American born to Colombian immigrants in New Jersey. Prior to joining Feeding America, she served as the Director of Advocacy and Government Relations for Second Harvest Food Bank of Central Florida in Orlando, Florida. Kelly is the Policy Director at Feeding America and oversees the state policy engagement, SNAP policy, disaster, and many other policy portfolios. She's now based in Washington, D.C., and is here to give us an overview on the Farm Bill and how we can all be advocates. So thanks, Kelly, for joining us.
Happy to be here. As Dorothy said, my name is Kelly Quintero. I'm the policy director at Feeding America, and I'm gonna, just really follow up on that wonderful video that Philabundance made about the Farm Bill. So we can actually go to that next slide, and I'll briefly talk about a little more about what the Farm Bill is in case this is the first time you're hearing about it. So the Farm Bill is the biggest piece of legislation that tackles hunger in our country, and it comes around every 5 years. So it's crucial because it includes funding for SNAP, TFAP, GUSNIP, so many other programs. And this is just like a really great overview of how the Farm Bill really started, how we're here. And as mentioned, it comes up every 5 years. And this is one of those 5 years where we are really seeing the need to update it, reauthorize it with the increased ask that we're really targeting this year. So we'll go to the next slide and really dig in a little bit more about what the Farm Bill even includes. So as I mentioned, it includes funding for SNAP, very specifically TFAP as well, CSFP, all the programs that you see here, and you probably interact with a lot too. So this program, this piece of legislation, I do not want to underscore or say this enough times that it is important to really have your elected officials hear from you, whether it's in partnership with the food bank or maybe through the congregation. If you are a pantry with the church, maybe that's a way you can make sure that they hear from you about why this piece of legislation is so crucial. So you're probably wondering, okay, you've told me it's happening this year, but when exactly? Fantastic question. We'll move us right along to that next slide. So as you know, there are many, many things that are happening here in Washington, D.C. on Capitol Hill. And one of those many things is not just the Farm Bill, but also a potential government shutdown. And I'll just be very upfront that there's a chance that there will likely be a government shutdown. We don't know exactly how long it will last, but we are very much continuing to advocate and letting our congressional members know that a government shutdown really means impacting people that you serve on an everyday basis. So with that in mind, it does impact the Farm Bill timeline. So technically it does expire at the end of September. But know that it will not get passed by the end of September. I wish that were true. Fingers crossed. Maybe a miracle will happen. But we likely think that it'll actually pass around early 2024. So they'll likely need to do what is called a continuing resolution to keep the 2018 Farm Bill working as it should until they can reach a new agreement. So that I'm trying to condense it all because it can get really wonky and really complicated, but those are the best basics that can really give you. So with that, we'll move on ahead to that next slide and really talk about what all is involved in executing this farm bill. And then we'll talk about what does this mean for you as an agency? So, as I mentioned, Farm Bill has to pass through Congress. So that very specifically means that the House and Senate sides must hear from their committee members on the agriculture side. And they've been doing hearings. I believe there was one in Pennsylvania around the Farm Bill as well. You got some great players in Pennsylvania that are really supporting food banks there. So huge kudos to Philabundance and all the other food banks in Pennsylvania as well. But once we have those hearings, there's a little bit more flavor of what exactly is going to be in these bills. And there tend to be called marker bills where really it's just a number of bills that make up this very large piece of legislation. For even more context, the specific title that talks about nutrition is just one of 12. So we're really focusing in on Title 4, which is around nutrition here. And Feeding America feels extremely strongly knowing that we continue to hear from partners like Philabundance that there's just this continued need. And we hear this across the country from all of our partners that there's a huge need and continued growth the need for additional food. So we are very much emphasizing TFAP, funding for TFAP so that everybody who does utilize it to distribute into the community can continue to use this program and really rely on it. And also, like pairing that alongside SNAP. Huge. That's an amazing program. For every meal that Feeding America food banks provide, SNAP provides the equivalent of 9 meals. So imagine doing 9 times what you're already doing. It would just be extremely hard. So that's why we not just need TFAP, but we need SNAP right alongside that. So we'll keep us moving along. You're probably also thinking, well, Kelly, it sounds like DC is maybe not moving things along. And what does that even mean for us? So fantastic thoughts. I agree. So we last week actually had a fly-in and I believe a few folks from Pennsylvania came down rather to DC to advocate on the Farm Bill, why it's needed in Pennsylvania, and making sure that it's fully funded at the levels that we wish to see. So again, as I mentioned, government shutdown, that's a possibility there. We think that there will be a few bills funding some parts of government to move us along and possibly that continuing resolution. But we really won't know until literally a week from now, when the deadline on September 30th. So just keep in touch with Philabundance. I'm sure the government relations folks will absolutely keep you in touch about it all. So with that, I'll almost close with the next slide, show our two biggest asks. As I mentioned, TFAP. If I don't say TFAP enough times here, keep thinking about TFAP. I want you to think about it in your sleep as well, because TFAP is truly what we're looking for. We want to ask Congress that they should reauthorize and double that mandatory funding for TFAP food purchases. And not just TFAP, but SNAP. SNAP should continue to be protected so that all that purchasing power that comes with SNAP can continue to align with those increasing grocery prices that we know everybody's seeing across the country. So those are the two biggest asks that I would say out of the Farm Bill. And with that next slide, we'll actually talk a little bit about what does it mean? What can you do? And I included a picture from my food bank days where I did advocacy and government relations and included elected officials and congressional members as well to really learn about the Farm Bill. And that included a lot of times working alongside the pantries in the service area and having them advocate because at the end of the day, our elected officials want to hear from you. They want to hear from their constituents and hearing what are you seeing and hearing from the people using your pantries. So never underestimate the power of the stories you hear on an everyday basis. So engaging your elected officials, if you're working alongside Philabundance, make sure you communicate with that staff to say, hey, we have a member visiting our pantry, or maybe that member is a part of your congregation, or that maybe that's an opportunity for somebody to say, like, let's talk about the Farm Bill maybe at one Sunday, something like that. Could also be an opportunity for sign-on letters. There are just so many ways to really engage your elected officials and continue emphasizing TFAP, TFAP, TFAP all day long with them, knowing it's important and sharing the stories of what you're hearing and seeing at your food distributions. So it would take us to that next slide, which is actually my last slide. We call this the ABCs, always be closing. So know that we need Congress to pass a bipartisan farm bill that protects and strengthens federal nutrition programs, specifically TFAP and SNAP. TFAP is our #1 priority because we know that that is the best way to get healthy, nutritious foods out into communities that is at almost to no cost, or should be no cost to you all, into your communities. And then the last one is, what do you need from us, from Philabundance, to continue supporting those priorities? So keeping those in mind as you have these conversations, you think about how to work with Philabundance to have these conversations with your elected officials. Perfect. So that's all I've got for talking about the Farm Bill. And I see some great suggestions, a few conversations and questions in the chat. Keep them coming if you have them.
Wow, Kelly, that was a lot. So thank you so much. When I go out and talk with people, I joke and say, I'm kind of, city suburban girl, grew up in South Jersey, live in Philly now. What do I care about a farm bill, right? And then I have learned over the last few years how very important this once every 5 years tool is. And think about it. We're all like doing our part with government. Government should do its part for us and for our neighbors. I'm glad we had this quick tutorial. All of these resources will be provided to you. There are these videos we've shown you, but another number of other quick ones. You can share them with your volunteers, with your boards, so they can get up to speed on kind of what this is and how they can be helpful. And I want to say a little bit more about the push for TFAP. And also just to remind Kelly that what you see here are people from both sides of the river. I know you're a Jersey girl too, right? So we're representing here 5 counties in Pennsylvania and 4 counties in in southern New Jersey as well. For Philabundance, we operate parts of the TFAP program just in Pennsylvania. That said, we know many of our partners in New Jersey are benefiting from that through our partner, the Food Bank of South Jersey. So we still want you to push for this. On the Pennsylvania side, we participate primarily in TFAP bonus, but we also added for the county of Philadelphia last year, TFAP entitlement. And this was our way of saying, like, we know government is providing less, but whatever's there, we want to get it for our neighbors. There was a question about the states and what the states are doing for us. And we advocate as much at the state level as we do at the federal level. Just on the Pennsylvania side, there's a program called the Pennsylvania Agriculture Surplus System Program, PASS, and that provides us with dollars to purchase from Pennsylvania farmers and growers and producers. So it can be things like dairy from them as well as produce. That I understand was started in Pennsylvania years ago and now has become a model for a federal program. So we take advantage of that, but we also advocate every year. So yesterday I was on a call with folks from Feeding PA and we're saying, like, do we want to ask for more? Guess what? We want to ask for more. So we absolutely are advocating at the state level as well for that. I'm going through the chat to make sure we got the questions. Are there other questions for Kelly or other questions about the government side of things? Ben's asking about materials. Yes, Kate's responding. Again, we will follow up with materials and we will make sure kind of the larger presentation. Yes, these quick videos will provide that to you. We have things that's like a one-pager that's colorful that people can capture. What you saw our colleague Callie do, like, here's what you do, here's how you call. So we will make sure that you have that. And please provide that with your staff, your volunteers, your donors, your neighbors. We need to make sure that Congress is hearing from all of us a lot over the next couple of weeks and months until we get this done. Let's see, I'm looking through team. Are there other questions? Okay. Great. Someone asked about the relationship between share and Philabundance. That's like a great follow-up from what I said about TFAP for Philadelphia. Last year, the city of Philadelphia decided to split the TFAP entitlement contract equally between share and Philabundance. Actually, they get a little bit more than we do. But anyway, basically they split it in half. And so on a monthly basis, we are on a call with the city and share and Philabundance working through that program. And what we're hoping is that it really is seamless for our partners on the ground. You know, the reality is we know we have to partner in order to meet this great need. And so if it's share, if it's Food Bank of South Jersey, if it's whomever, we're willing to partner with anybody to ensure that you and our neighbors get access to the fresh, healthy food that they need and deserve. Okay, team, I'm going to dive in on the shutdown question. And can you just give me a second? I need to apologize to my team. I have been I'm following some of their remarks. Some of it I'm not. I'm going a little bit rogue on this, but I'm so excited to get to talk to you all. And there's so much important information to share. So question about the shutdown. And I don't know if Kelly wants to talk about this. So it's been since 2018, 2019 was the last time there was a government shutdown that was pretty significant, right? And so what that means is if government doesn't act over the next couple of weeks, by the end of next week, right? It's possible the government would shut down. And they would then say that some programs that are essential, some employees would still have to come to work, but not get paid. Some employees would be furloughed or told to stay home and not get paid. Now, what tends to happen, just like with a lot of strikes, after that's done, and we hope it'll be done soon, if there is one, they'll get all that money back. But you all know better than most that so many of our neighbors missing that one paycheck could be devastating for them, right? And so we think that might mean that they may need additional help. Well, last time what happened is some government folks at the state and federal level provided some of the government supports in advance, or let's say gave them 2 months of SNAP as opposed to 1 month. We're not sure what's going to happen there. Whatever we're hearing, we're going to work with you guys to get the word out. So we're going to let our neighbors know you're getting extra SNAP now, or here's what's happening. So a big part of our response is going to be about communicating to our neighbors where they can find resources, what those resources are, and how we can help. So be on the lookout. You will be hearing from us about a government shutdown. Someone asked a minute ago, I just said who we partner with. I have already sent a message to the Chester County Food Bank, to Share Food Program, to Food Bank of South Jersey, and to the Delaware Food Bank to say, hey guys, let's get together and talk because our neighbors in our region are going to need help. And so our intention is to work with all of them and all of you to get the word out about resources. That's one part of it. The other part of it is, if it happens and it's extended, what we did years ago, I wasn't here for it, is we did an emergency food distribution for government workers that were impacted by it. So we're doing the planning now to see if I can find some additional dollars to buy some additional food to do that, to meet those needs. So we're planning, and we're doing this not just by ourselves, other food banks in the area, but also our counterparts at Feeding America and across the whole country. So we're listening ear to the ground, but beginning to plan. So thank you for that question. And I'm glad, I really wanted to make sure we addressed that since we had you all here.
Yeah, Loree, we're just trying to go through to make sure we didn't miss anything. Certainly, encourage you if you have a question that we missed. Again, we're really grateful that so many of you joined us today, but we might have missed some. So just encourage you to add it back to the chat, just so that we are collecting everything that you said. We also asked if we could stop sharing for a moment. Sometimes it's really just nice to really be able to see each other and have a conversation. So if you are able to turn on your camera, we'd love to just be able to see you and connect with you that way. But we are just double checking we haven't missed any questions that you asked in the chat. So just give me a moment, Loree.
Yeah, one thing I'm going to ask Kelly to come back off mute for is Jim's question. Like, what are we feeling and thinking about? When do you think this will happen and the level of funding we might see through this farm bill?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I feel like I can't quite answer that question just quite yet. And the reason I say that is because a lot of the oxygen here in DC is really being taken up by the shutdown conversation. So once our Congress is able to really agree on a budget, I think then they'll be able to refocus on the Farm Bill, knowing that this is still a very crucial piece of legislation that they absolutely must do sooner rather than later. We're going to keep asking for, the moon and then some. We're going to keep asking for TFAP to be doubled and reauthorized in that mandatory funding level. Who knows what it'll end up being, but that's our goal, and that's what we're gonna keep asking for. And if we don't get it, we're gonna be a little frustrated, knowing that that has an impact on so many families that are facing food insecurity today. So we're gonna keep asking for all of it, and making sure that we have our champions in Congress, knowing why this is so important. And I think that's a great opportunity for you all as pantries to continue really emphasizing that the need in your at your pantries continues to grow, and why these programs are so crucial to continue at those funding levels.
So we've all got our work cut out for us. We really do have to be calling, emailing, writing, all of those things, and getting the word out about the Farm Bill. There was a question that I was asked in the chat, and I answered the chat, and that was about that direct purchasing that I talked about, and whether we could do that for holiday, for Thanksgiving, and those kinds of things. So not necessarily in this time frame, but perhaps in the future, we'll be able, in future holiday years, we'd be able to do that. So we're not going to be able to do that direct turnaround this quickly. But I did see somebody, I think from Mighty Writers, asked that question.
And Loree, I see see something new in the chat from Whitney. Is the presumption that each site served will see an approximate 30% reduction in availability based on funding? As far as food rescue is concerned, do we have any guidelines in place that could potentially extend shelf life and reduce waste? I've noticed some of the rescued food is within hours of expiration or immediately beyond ability to distribute safely.
Yeah, you're asking a really tough question. So yeah, we think that's I'm not going to say 30%. I haven't done the math on it. So maybe somebody can do the quick math, but we can tell you what we think the reduction would be. So down from 49 million pounds to about 38 million pounds. So we'll tell you what we think that number will be. And we are hoping that through this direct purchasing, we could do some supplement of that. And again, we've not given up on finding additional dollars to be able to take it back up to that higher level. You ask, some of the food we do get, you realize this, if we're getting fresh produce, some things we're getting are toward the end. We are pushing, particularly when we're purchasing food, to get it earlier and earlier. So in that case, it would not be something that would be that would expire really quickly. And that unfortunately is a reality of some part of this work. And so wherever possible, we'll try to get it sooner and sooner, and make sure that you get food with enough of a shelf life to get handed out safely to people. Yeah, social media posts, absolutely, Jackie. And so we can include that. There's more ways that we can do that. The 22% reduction. Thanks for doing the math.
Gigi.
Hi, thanks so much. I really appreciate the call, and I appreciate the information. I, of course, am like immediately having a panic attack because the government shutdown, and then obviously knowing we're facing increases anyway, decreases anyway, and the shutdown, and a possible further increase in population being served. It's frightening, and I just wanted to say that it's incumbent upon all of us to make our local, state, and federal officials well aware that we are the frontline workers that came to the emergency, and we will do it every time. But they need to come to that front line for us, right, and pass these really important pieces of legislation that keep us able to have our communities be cohesive and not fall through the holes in the safety net. So thank you.
Yeah, no, Gigi, thank you for that. And that is true. It's part of our work. People say, what do you do at Philabundance? Like there's the work we do, that's our workforce development program. There's the work we do getting the food out, and there's work we do around advocacy. And I had to tell you guys, like people were like, oh my gosh, you guys have the president there. Like, why? We have the president here. We're trying to raise awareness. Like we will talk to each and every elected official. We had in the congresswoman for this particular physical area where I am in South Philly, Congresswoman Scanlon, she wanted to come in. She brought a bunch of partners together, share some of the pantry. Some of you were there, and said, give me the ammunition to go and talk to Congress. If you know of an elected official, we are willing to talk with them. What we say, and Kelly, let me see if I get this right. At Feeding America, we're not saying that we're Republican or Democrat or independent. We're not saying that. We are for people who are food insecure. They can decide to be with us or not. So either going to be with us, or I don't care how they vote. If you're going to be for people who are food insecure, and here's what we need from you. We need a strong farm bill. We need some of this nonsense with SNAP, all these extra hoops people have to jump through. We need those to go away. So we need additional supports, but yeah, that's how we look at this. Right. So we'll be sharing lots of information for people. Anyone else want to come off mute in the last minute or so? And then Dorothy, you're going to have the closing. If anybody else wants to come off mute, I appreciate all of you. I do want to call out my incredible staff, our community partnerships team, our external relations team. There's some of the folks that are on the call right now. I'm looking at Vicki Rossi, who's been like our champion for government food and helping us keep all of that regulation stuff together. And Katie Gunter, who you've probably partnered with on Healthy Pantry. If not, please see her. Let's talk with her about that. And Lee and Cedric, and who else is on? AJ, Dorothy, who am I missing? Nicole. You guys put your heart and soul in this work and working with our partners. So thank you. John, I could say hi to you too. So Dorothy, you want to close us out now that I've kind of messed it up and didn't follow my script and talking?
No, I think, truly this was such an important conversation to have. And we absolutely hope that, it was valuable and informative, though at times I think we all wish that we were delivering different news, but really heard all of you and saying what's best is just being really transparent and direct with communication so that we can truly work together, really on the same mission. So really just wanted to thank all of you and really echo a lot of the thank yous that Loree said. I'm sure for many of you that also have fond memories of doing virtual events, there's a lot of people doing work behind the scenes just to make sure that we are doing our best to answer all of your questions to the best of our ability. So absolutely going to make sure that we are closing out with making sure all of you know the best way to reach out to us. Hopefully, you know that you can call or email or message us as best as possible. And I truly know that what Loree said is what we are absolutely invested in doing. We want to make sure that we are being true partners in this work, and appreciate all of you being really open and telling us some of the challenges that you're currently facing so that we're able to use that information to help continue to move this work forward. So also just encourage you, if you did not kind of share really what you're experiencing in the current moment and how we could continue to best support you, please reach out to us and let us know. So again, we absolutely cannot do this work without you. We please know that we are working hard every single day to source and identify and fight for as much food as our network needs. So please continue to reach out to us. We do hope that we'll be able to convene us all more in the future. But if you have any remaining questions, feel free to drop them in the chat or send us an email. But we absolutely hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day and a restful weekend. So thank you all for joining us today.